Is a war for the future of Krakoa beginning to brew amongst the most powerful and influential mutants? Well, let's hop into the pages of Inferno issue number 3 and find out together, shall we? Alrighty then, so as this issue opens up, we go all the way back to the original founding of Krakoa when Professor X first told of his great plan to Cypher. You know, I actually remember making fun of Doug all the way back then, considering him to be an insignificant mutant in the greater scheme of things let in on the ground floor of this huge expansion. But man alive, as this Hickman run made me eat those words several times over, as we discovered Doug actually was on the island for a whole year before everyone else moved in, trying to figure out how to best communicate with the island and create the mutant language as we know it. Here's a big twist though that no one knew about. Doug didn't spend that time on the island alone. He was backed up by longtime friend and robot buddy Warlock, which is actually a pretty big deal, learning that one of the original founding fathers of this brand new mutant nation was actually not a mutant or even a human, but a robot, when we stop and consider that Moira McTaggart's entire motivation is stopping mutant extinction at the hands of robots in the far future, where they're the only two races that survive. Furthermore, Warlock actually didn't trust Professor Xavier, saying that he's left Cypher in the lurch multiple times before to go bang alien princesses, so why should they believe he's on the up and up now? It's here too that Cypher and Warlock would actually end up forging a really beautiful friendship with the sentient island of Krakoa. In fact, I've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating, this idea that mutant, robot, and nature can live in harmony side by side actually gives us a lot of hope for the future. We're also reminded that Krakoa, because it's a living thing, actually needs to feed to stay alive and not go dormant. Now, the X-Men books have kind of done a good job up until now playing fast and loose with what exactly that means. In some books, it's implied that the island actually lives off psychic energy, which might explain why it was cool letting all these mutants live on it in exchange for basically feeding it, but that wasn't always the case. Krakoa used to eat organic matter, and Cypher thought it would be interesting to feed it pieces of Warlock, considering that it wouldn't really hurt the robot and he could regrow himself. This is actually a massive bomb drop though, for two big reasons. The first being, hey, turns out Krakoa, this mutant island, actually has robot parts living within it that you didn't know about. And two, Doug could actually access those parts of Warlock whenever he wanted. Basically, he created an entire safety net, a spy network that would allow him to listen in on everyone else. But specifically Professor X, who Cypher never really trusted from the get-go. That means when Moira McTaggart says that she wants Destiny killed, Doug hears that. Oh, and the flowers that create the Krakoan portals, yeah, those are made from dead bodies. But you know, I'm sure that's not going to end up being really important later on or anything. Now, in the present, Destiny and Mystique are called by the Stepford Cuckoos to take a very important meeting with Emma Frost. This issue actually says that the Stepford Cuckoos were some of the first resurrected under the new Krakoan protocols, and that their whole mutant hive mind power circuit served as inspiration for the Five. Despite all of this though, Destiny is very unimpressed, and when the Cuckoos get in her face, Destiny decides to prove why it's not a good idea to mess with a woman who can see every version of your life, and how it's most likely going to end. Basically, Destiny has mastered the art of weaponizing spoilers and tells the Five Cuckoos that two of them will find love, one will die, and one will never get over it. Now, what exactly does Emma want to tell Destiny and Mystique? Well, she basically drops a massive dime on everything that Magneto and Professor X have been doing, that Moira is not only alive and has been pulling the strings of Krakoa since its inception, but also that she's been a secret mutant this whole time. Using her psychic powers, Emma is even able to show Destiny and Mystique an excerpt from one of Moira's previous lives, specifically the one where Mystique and Destiny murder her. Emma also probably ends up walking away with the quote of the issue by saying just how dangerous Moira really is. Her power to do things over and over again means that she could very easily watch all of mutant kind, everything they've built and suffered for, burn to ash, and then just get to do it again. But here's the really interesting thing. Even though Emma turned down Moira, Xavier, and Eric's offer to join their little cadre controlling Krakoa from behind the scenes, it doesn't mean she's going to back whatever Destiny and Mystique do. She doesn't trust either of them, so she's vowed to basically be Switzerland, a neutral party that vows to clean up the mess after these two forces crash into each other. And I mean, hey, if that clash ends up being as destructive as we all think it is, that could possibly mean that when the dust settles, the White Queen might be Queen of Krakoa. But hey, the big threat isn't just from mutants fighting each other, there's still the matter of Orchis, the superpowered anti-mutant hate group. Moira is out and about in Paris when she ends up getting grabbed by a bunch of Orchis grunts. Ah yes, all these multiple lives lived, all this information learned, all of this foresight, and you think Moira would have at least taken a self-defense class one time. Now back over with Magneto, he's in a real brooding mood right now. Their attempt to recruit Emma failed, and now Eric is starting to feel the walls closing in around him, like the dream of Krakoa might be dying on the vine. He questions if Krakoa could ever have worked when it was all built on a lie and when they're all driving themselves crazy to try and maintain that lie at any cost. Despite their lofty goals and ambitions, they ultimately ended up becoming every bit as corrupt as the humans they claim to be better than. Xavier, though, fires back the way he always does, saying that the dream of cohabitation between mutant and human is in sight, that they would have been different once they completed their goal. They would have shown mercy. This pity party ends up getting crashed, however, when Xavier gets a psychic distress call from Moira. She's being tortured and is near death, and it looks like the X-Men are gonna have to get their butts in gear if they want to save her. And hey, in a nice bit of continuity with the X-Force books, it seems that Moira is being held captive in an Orchis base over in Terra Verde. But before we deal with that rescue mission, though, we're going to have to deal with yet another big story redefining bomb drop. Are you ready for it? Cause buckle up. You see, Magneto and Professor X's whole is it worth it conversation actually ends up getting reflected in a conversation between Omega Sentinel and Nimrod. The mutants keep sending hit squads after Nimrod, but none of them are successful, which means Orchis actually feels confident enough to try and rebuild Mother Mold. It's here, though, that Nimrod, who has grown much smarter and much more self-aware than anyone could ever have considered, actually asks a very important question of Omega Sentinel, and that is, when is she from? Not where, when. Yes, that's right, everybody. This Omega Sentinel we've been following around from the very beginning of Hox and Pox is actually a time traveler from the far future. A future that she says is actually ruled by mutants as the dominant species, not long after their defeat of the Children of the Vault and their scuttling of the Nimrod program in its infancy. The final blow was struck against mutant kind, though, when they took the Phoenix Blade and slayed the old ancient machine gods, basically those big giant versions of the Phalanx we saw in Hox and Pox. One machine god was a coward, though, and survived long enough to capture Omega Sentinel, take her mind, and send it through a time portal in a black hole to overtake her current day body. This also means that Omega Sentinel was always the mastermind behind Orchis. Dr. Devo is just a figurehead, as she puts it, her human whisperer, and that the true final battle between mutant and sentient machine has already begun. Now, when Magneto and Professor X make it to that Orchis base to rescue Moira, they're surprised to find that pretty much all the staff at this place has been brutally murdered. Yes, that's right, Mystique and Destiny managed to beat them to the punch and have already taken Moira elsewhere for their unfinished business. Meaning, as the comic comes to a close, Eric and Charles end up getting blindsided by Nimrod and Omega Sentinel, who come in with an entire Orchis army. And so that was Inferno issue number 3, everybody, and once again, just when I thought this series couldn't get big enough that they couldn't redefine the game when it was already in play, Hickman comes and does it. I love that they're once again refocusing on the whole mutants versus machines thing that was so prevalent in Hox and Pox. While the mutants fight for power amongst themselves, the real battle is already going on. You also get the feeling that if mutant kind ever hopes to stand a chance, a lot of them that hate each other are going to have to forgive and forget. Mystique might hate Moira, but if it means saving her love, Destiny, and the rest of mutant kind, she may have to end up bearing the hatchet, as Moira's multiple other lives and foresight could come in very handy in the fight against Omega Sentinel. More than anything, though, what's truly great about this series is just the real depths of complexity they managed to plunge with every single character. It's so thoroughly exciting and exhilarating, and no one throws a punch, really. It's just people having conversations. Overall, I'd give this one a very well-deserved 9 out of 10. It is just damn good stuff.
Hey there everyone, Cape Jewel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out about all this and more down in the description. And until next time, everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.